It's a Tuesday afternoon and I've just gotten back from school. I grab a quick snack and my phone, mindlessly, and begin to scroll through Instagram. One reel after another, I pull my head up from this hypnosis state that I've entered to check the time. 7:30? It was just 5 o'clock a minute ago. How have I wasted so much time? By raise of hands, how many of you have caught yourselves in a similar situation to this? That's what I assume. But don't be afraid to admit it, because the truth is, as you can see around you, you're not alone. For me, doom scrolling begins with stress, or boredom, or that weird in-between feeling where I don't know what I want, but I know I want something to satisfy my craving for a quick hit of dopamine. So I do what I know will give me that feeling best. I scroll. What was meant to be a quick break quietly turns into a doom scrolling session, and when I finally stop, I don't feel relaxed. I feel guilty. Like I wasted time that I didn't really have to begin with. Like I failed some invisible test of discipline. The strange part here is that it's never intentional. Most of us would label this experience as addiction. And honestly, that makes sense, right? It feels like addiction. However, in the world of neuroscience, there's a different word for what's happening here. They call it adaptation. Now, when most of us hear the word adaptation, we think of the concept of evolution developed by world-renowned scientist Charles Darwin. He discovered that animals evolve over generations to survive in their environments. However, adaptation isn't just something that happens over centuries. It's something your brain does every single day. Your brain is constantly scanning its environment, noticing new patterns and learning what leads to new rewards. And whether we like it or not, short-form content has become a part of that environment. When you scroll, your brain switches into a sort of search mode. Swiping becomes your hunting method. Every swipe holds the possibility that the next video will be funnier, more shocking, more validating. In other words, more rewarding. And sometimes it is. However, the problem here isn't the habit itself. Once your brain starts to adapt to that pattern, everything else around you starts to feel slow. Simple routines no longer seem to keep up with your pace anymore. Things that don't give you that immediate feedback suddenly feel exhausting. You get bored faster. You lose patience. You end up avoiding tasks that take time and effort. Ultimately, you begin to choose easy rewards over meaningful ones. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack discipline, but because that's what your brain has been trained to do. In other words, you have now acquired a shortened attention span. Now, how does this shortened attention span work? Well, we break our focus into tiny fragments when we scroll. And over time, this can show up as brain fog. You'll see this through difficulty finishing tasks, trouble remembering details, and just feeling mentally scattered. And suddenly, your mind starts to sound a little like this. I have to go pick up supplies for my project tomorrow. No, I had something else. Oh yes, those 3 assignments are still due. How am I gonna finish up those assignments and pick up those project supplies? No, I feel like I'm still forgetting something. What was it? What was it? I have work after school today. How am I gonna do both this and that and show up to work? Oh, everything's a mess. In the name of planning, your mind turns into noise you can't tune out. This is because your thoughts are moving at a pace at which you intake information when you scroll. And whether we like it or not, we end up feeling overwhelmed without clarity. Here's the part that matters the most. We blame ourselves for this. We call it a bad habit. We tell ourselves to just have more self-control. But when we continue to scroll, we just feel guilty. The truth is, guilt won't do anything for a brain that is adapted. Our brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do. respond to repeated exposure in a way that feels effortless. Because we've trained our brains to not want to work as hard for its reward anymore. It's become a routine. But I've got some good news for you. Our brains can readapt through a process called neuroplasticity. Let me break down the word for you. Neuro refers to neurons and neural circuits. Plasticity is the ability to change and reorganize. Together, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to an experience. So, how does neuroplasticity work? How does it affect our brains? Well, this is one neuron, and this is another neuron. When these neurons connect, they form what is called a synaptic connection. Now, the more a behavior is repeated, the stronger that connection becomes. When doom scrolling becomes a habit, those connections that you've already had detach and connect to new neurons, forming new connections that correspond with the new habit. And so that means our focus didn't disappear. It's just out of practice. And here's how we get it back. According to Mayo Clinic, one of the most powerful tools for change is something incredibly simple: awareness. Not self-punishment, not discipline, just being aware. It means noticing what you feel before, after, and while you scroll. Most of the time, that feeling isn't excitement. The majority of us use it as an activity to pass time. And there's a numbness that forms inside of us while we scroll, chipping away at our empathy, little by little. The difficult part is we don't realize that it's a problem while it's happening, which means we can't rely on willpower in the moment to stop. So what if instead of trying to fight the behavior, we try reshaping what leads to it? Since the brain loves to follow what's easy, when something just becomes a little bit harder to reach, our brain pauses. It hesitates for a moment before figuring out other ways to get what it wants. And what leads to this pause doesn't have to be drastic. It can start small. Maybe you start by removing the apps that offer short-form content from our screens and relocating them to other parts of our phone that we don't visit as often. This makes our brain just work a little bit harder to access this reward. Another option is to set a time limit. Maybe you start with 10 minutes, and when the urge to keep scrolling appears after time's up, you can redirect it into something more mindful, like walking, journaling, stretching. So we're not depriving our brain, we're just ending the endless aspect of it. And if you really want to take it a step further, you can try something even more uncomfortable: intentional boredom. Just sit down for 2 minutes. All you'll need is just you and your breaths. Do absolutely nothing during this time. Ask yourself, what am I looking for right now? A distraction? Someone to relate to? Relief? Even if you end up scrolling afterwards, those 2 minutes are incredibly important because that's the moment you step off autopilot. So maybe the issue isn't that we're addicted to scrolling. Maybe it's that our brains have been adapting without us noticing. And adaptation isn't permanent. It's continuous. It's never ending. Every pause, every intentional choice, every moment of awareness, that's practice. We're not broken, and our focus didn't disappear. It's just been trained elsewhere. And the moment we realize that, we stop fighting our brains and start training them again. Because somewhere along the way, we stop being present for ourselves and truly living in the moment. It's time for us to finally wake up. Thank you.